This is the Washington Times front page for Wednesday, September 28th, 2022. Thanks for joining us. I'm George Gerbo. West Virginia Democratic Senator Joe Manchin has retreated under bipartisan opposition to his proposal to fast-track energy projects, pulling the plan from a continuing resolution to keep the federal government funded. Ramsey Touchberry reports the move clears the way for Senate passage of the overall measure to keep the government funded past Friday. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer agreed to move forward with the procedural vote to advance the spending bill without Manchin's energy-permitting proposal. Originally expected to fall short of the required 60 votes needed to advance, the funding measure easily cleared a procedural hurdle in the Senate by a vote of 72 to 23. A final vote is expected Wednesday or Thursday. It will keep the government funded through December 16th. Included in the measure is more than $12 billion in military and humanitarian aid for Ukraine and $20 million to address the water sanitation crisis that has plagued Jackson, Mississippi. Also inside the bill is $15.3 million in emergency money for the FBI to investigate Afghan evacuees brought to the U.S. during last year's chaotic airlift. Congress is providing that funding, Stephen Dinan reports, just a month after Director Christopher Wray told lawmakers the Bureau was having to conduct lots of interviews to keep track of the Afghans and warned of a number of disruptions of activities. The FBI didn't provide any details on how it plans to spend the money, merely repeating the White House's explanation when it asked Congress for the funding earlier this month, that funding for the FBI will support ongoing Afghan evacuee resettlement investigative efforts under Operation Enduring Welcome. Hurricane Ian is set to make landfall in southwest Florida near Fort Myers as a Category 4 storm with sustained winds greater than 150 miles per hour. Susan Ferricchio reports Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has declared a state of emergency for all 67 counties in the state and has been on camera daily urging residents to heed evacuation warnings as the storm track has shifted more to the east. It's the biggest challenge of DeSantis' first term in office and could affect his political future as the rest of the country gets a look at how he steers the Sunshine State through a natural disaster. You can read all of these stories at WashingtonTimes.com/front page. You can also find the entire lineup of news, sports, and commentary podcasts at WashingtonTimes.com/podcasts. Russian and Ukrainian troops appear poised for a war of attrition that could drag on for years on the ground. In the air, though, Pentagon correspondent Ben Wolfgang reports Russia may have already lost. Virtually all military observers expected Russia to dominate the Ukrainian skies within days of its invasion in late February, given its massive numerical edge in fighter jets. Instead, Ukrainian airspace remains contested, thanks largely to a steady stream of anti-aircraft weapons from the United States and Europe, and major strategic blunders from Russian commanders. Air power strategists and military insiders say Russia's failure to achieve air superiority over Ukraine has been one of the biggest shocks of the war so far, and has contributed greatly to broader battlefield failures. Russia's missteps in the air, they say, helped doom its ground assault on Kyiv in the early days of fighting. More recently, the lack of air dominance allowed a Ukrainian counteroffensive to push Russian ground troops out of Kharkiv and other key cities. And finally, Beto O'Rourke and Stacey Abrams shot into the political stratosphere 4 years ago when the Democrats electrified the party on their way to better-than-expected showings in statewide races in Texas and Georgia. This year, Seth McLaughlin reports, they're struggling to build on those near-success stories in a pair of gubernatorial races, and they're running out of time to seize the momentum from Republican incumbent governors Greg Abbott in Texas and Brian Kemp in Georgia. Less than 2 months from Election Day, political analysts say Kemp and Abbott are the clear frontrunners, and the longer O'Rourke and Abrams have basked in the national limelight, the more polarizing they've become. Find all of today's front page stories at WashingtonTimes.com/front page or on the Washington Times app, and find us wherever you get your podcasts. Just search Washington Times in your favorite podcast app. You can also find us on Twitter and Instagram at Wash Times for breaking news, sports, commentary, and more. For the Washington Times, I'm George Gerbo.